Well, and I'm still wondering, big question wise, how is he fitting into Dennis Allen's defense? Is he going to have the same rotation? Is he going to have the same amount of playing time? That's my biggest question in all of this.
One of the more interesting things he said yesterday was that, he said Coach Allen is very, I just lost the word that fast, but it was like complicated, complex. Complex was the word. He's a very complex person. I think he was ultimately referring to the defense and what he wants them to do. And so I think they're all kind of just going through this period of figuring out what their role is going to be in this defense and how, if at all, it'll be different from things that they've experienced in the past.
So it's a filling out process. Yeah. What was the biggest thing that you took away from watching yesterday and just in general since we've had this off-season program kind of going? What have been your biggest overall takeaways?
When we talked to veteran defensive tackle Grady Jarrett, who the Bears acquired this offseason last week, he said that the coaches are holding them to a high standard. He said Coach Johnson is the leader, and it's across the board, offense and defense. And then he said all of these coaches, they're not coming off of it, right? They're going to keep the standard, and it's going to be high. And you continue to see that. We saw it last week. You saw it again this week. And it's not just Coach Johnson. It's Coach Allen. It's Coach Bieniemy. It's all of them, right? You see them all doing the same things across the field. And I think that feels a little different. It's unfortunate to say because it's NFL football and it should look that way for everybody, right?
How different?
Significantly.
Yeah,
we heard Coach Eberflus and his regime talk about we aren't going to walk past mistakes. We aren't going to walk past mistakes. And then they walked past mistakes. And then later they're like, oh, we should have addressed that in the spring or in the summer. Yeah, you should have. They are actually addressing these things as they happen. Coach Johnson sent them back into the huddle at least 3 or 4 times yesterday. Like, nope, get back in the huddle. And so I asked him that in the press conference, like, what exactly are you looking for before you can allow them to actually approach the line of scrimmage? He said it should look a certain way. It should sound a certain way to let me know we're ready for business.
Well, and I don't know about you, but then I think it was part of that very answer where Ben Johnson said, if it doesn't look right by training camp, then we have to reassess. Like, do you know that comment he made? I rewound it like a couple times. It was late at night, and I'm going, what do you mean when you say that?
I think he's keeping everybody on their toes. I mean, his introductory press conference, he talked about guys having to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I think he wants them uncomfortable. I don't think he wants anybody secure in their spot or what they're doing. We're going to do what I tell you to do. You're going to do it the way I tell you to, or everything is on the table.
Well, I also think that we heard a lot of I don't know if you want to call them lies, but I think we heard a lot of covering up for things that were not indeed fixed. Just like you talk about when you said Eberflus said that they weren't going to overlook mistakes, and then they did. I remember the cadence issue being a clear issue.
Yep.
And then in training camp, they're like, oh, it's fixed. And I'm like, is it fixed or are you saying it's fixed? And there are countless times during the season where you can point and say, it was not fixed.
Now, you heard it through training camp. There was one instance in particular, and I'm forgetting who said it. I feel like it may have been DeMarcus because it just seems like it would have been DeMarcus Walker. But Caleb's going through his cadence, and right in the middle of the play before the snap, he's like, get that weak ass cadence out of here. Like, and it's just like you can hear DeMarcus say that on the field. And it's like, yeah, this has got to get better because these veteran D linemen aren't buying it.
That's discouraging what you're saying, but also it's encouraging to know, one, that era is over.
Yeah.
That is in the past. And to already hear people describing Ben Johnson's practices, and these aren't real practices with pads. These aren't even the real training camp deal yet.
Yeah.
But to hear it already has to be encouraging for not just us as bystanders, witnesses, media members, but also for the players themselves. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, when we kind of cross this line of demarcation to say, okay, we're here now. And it sounds like it's going to be later rather than sooner.
Mm-hmm. No, I think, listen, the players asked for this last year. They were all talking about accountability and the coaches not holding guys accountable when they make certain mistakes. Well, now it's going to be here, right? And these coaches seem intent on doing it every single day. Coach Harris, Coach Randall, they all seem intent on holding you to this standard every single day. Case Keenum came to the podium. He said, Coach is not going to allow you to come in this building with anything less than your best on any given day. And I think that ultimately is going to force all the players to rise to the standard and ultimately put their best product on the field on Sundays. And that's what we all want.
The comfortable, uncomfortable thing, going back to that introductory press conference, I think that's great. And here's why. Because ultimately, and we saw it last year play out in real time,
yeah.
There's going to be very uncomfortable moments beginning, middle, and especially at the end of football games. And you want to know that you have the mental wherewithal as a football team, the individuals as a collective unit to meet the moment. And last year we saw, you can say it was on the coaches. That's fine. But overall, it wasn't like somebody on the field called a timeout in Washington. You have to be able to meet the moment. And I think Ben Johnson and this particular staff, the veteran presence of a Dennis Allen as your defensive coordinator, they're going to be able to meet moments.
Yeah, Coach Johnson referenced that yesterday. He talked about the mental fatigue that happens over the course of a 4-quarter game, and you still have to be able to not just physically, but mentally meet the moment when it matters most. And the Bears didn't do that on the field. They didn't do it on the sidelines a ton of times last year.
Well, and also, as you were saying, when they don't even know what's wrong to be able to call the timeout and pause.
Situational football.
That's it. That's the issue, too. How many times do we spend asking who's got the veto power here? Who's got the right to say timeout? Who is allowed to call one? And remember, even Jalen freaking Johnson did not, he paused and had to think about it for a second. Because that was another question that we didn't necessarily know the answer to.
There was a point. Yeah, and there was a point in practice yesterday. I'm standing on the sideline. The receivers are right here. It's a team drill, 7-on-7. There may be even 11 on. But either way, Antoine Rondell is coming past, and it gets to like 3rd and whatever, right? And they're trying to drive. And DJ Moore is on the sideline, and Caleb's on the side. I think the twos are in. And Coach Rondell goes, okay, what are we thinking right here? He turns around to those guys and like, what are we thinking right here in this moment? And Caleb approaches him to say what he thinks, and then DJ's taking a knee kind of in front of us, and he yells out what he thought it should be. And Coach is like, yeah, that's what we need to be doing. That's what everybody needs to be thinking in this moment as we approach this 3rd and 6, trying to get into field goal range before this clock runs out.
Herb Howard joining us live in studio from the Bigs Media Bears reporter. He was at Haugh yesterday. He's at Haugh seemingly every time. Packs a overnight bag, snacks, all the things.
He lived there.
And he's kind enough to join us here on Rahimi and Harris as we talk about takeaways from this early moment in the offseason program where the Bears finally stepping to the podium, including Caleb Williams. And I'm just so glad that we're at a point where the initial Caleb thing is behind us and we can kind of focus on other things, even if it's Caleb related, where his development on the field?
So what I was going to say, too, is that it's important that you point out DJ Moore and him being the one to speak there. Because Patrick Finley asked a question about DJ Moore yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, that's a discussion that a lot of people had, was that video of him going off the field and then coming back on and running a go route the next play. That's something that people have discussed. DJ Moore has also discussed it. We bring it up when we're trying to figure out who is in on this, right? You're trying to figure out who's bought in. So if he's the one saying that, I think that says a lot about what we can make out of the willingness for people to participate.
You got a lot of guys that are hungry to win, but not a lot of guys who've actually done it. DJ doesn't know what winning football looks like or feels like. He came from Carolina to Chicago.
Has never played on a team with a winning record.
Much as I like DJ as a player and a person, he don't know what a winning team feels like. So, you know, there are things that all these guys are going to have to continue to learn. Jalen Johnson doesn't know much about it. I mean, sans one seat, like he doesn't know much about it. So these are guys that are going to lead this football team while they're also learning how to set the standard for these guys in terms of creating a winning culture. That's why it's really good that you bring in a Joe Thuney who understands exactly what this looks like with multiple franchises, and hopefully he can bring some of that into as well.
Well, and I appreciate you bringing up Joe Thuney. I think we've talked about it as a group, you, me, and Marshall, that his veteran presence might be one of those times, too, where when the bad looks really bad, you need somebody in your position group room to say, it's not as bad as you think, or this is something we can overcome. Because I wonder how much that was there last year.
Doesn't seem like it was there at all, right? You had the horrific loss to Washington, and then they were never able to recover from that. And it's like, okay, somebody has to be able to say, let's just reset, let's calm down. Sure, coach was wrong. Sure, Tyreek was wrong. Sure, the offensive coordinator giving the ball to your backup center on the goal line while you're down is wrong. Like, all those things are wrong, right? And it cost us a football game. Now, how do we reset and get back to the team we were when we were coming back from London 4-2?
Yeah, and Caleb brought up 4-2 yesterday. He made sure to bring that up.
Yeah, I mean,
unfortunately, they finished 5-12.
Man,
listen, Layla, they're 1-0 in 2025.
That they are against the Packers, no less. The biggest team you want to be 1-0 against.
There you go. Caleb's undefeated at Lambeau.
I look at this right now as this period where you can be optimistic and it can be unlimited optimism. You can also be pragmatic and understand how difficult the road is ahead.
Yeah.
And looking at the schedule last year, and we talked on schedule release day, just kind of cemented, hey, it's a last place schedule in that they are playing the weakest schedule based on last year, what happened.
True.
It is a much, much, much more difficult schedule than the one they played last year because of who is on the schedule.
Right.
That's just rotations.
Right.
And I wonder if our expectations are realistic.
Depends on your expectations, Marshall. What do you think they got?
I think they can go 7-10.
Okay, I think that's legit. I think I got them at 9-8. But I think it's going to be such a contrast between home and away. I think they have to take care of business at home in such a way. They got 8 home games. I think they got to win 6 or 7 to even get a chance to get to 9 because the road is a gauntlet, man. You got the 3 division games, sure, but you're going to Philly, you're going to Baltimore, you're going to San Fran. Like these are tough, man. Like so they got to be ready to play against these teams on the road. And if it goes the way I think it may go on the road, then they better be damn good at home.
Also, now that it's a post fact note, did anybody think that Brock Purdy wasn't going to get over $50 million a year?
No, that's the price.
I mean, right?
yeah.
When you consider who's getting paid over 50 in the league, like he had been to a Super Bowl, that's going to change the price.
Yeah. People have an idea of what quarterbacking should look like. And I've been saying this for 2 years now. And it just needs to look like winning. That's it. Like there's a lot of different versions of it and a lot of different styles to do it. He wins. He commands his guys. They believe in him. He understands what they do well. He gets the ball out of his hands and into their hands. That's all you got to do. It doesn't have to look like this or like that. He wins.
That's why Joe Flacco got paid all the money he got paid
Indeed.
after they won the Super Bowl. I get that. I think what you just brought up, Layla, is a great point because let's be honest. We are in a window right now. Caleb Williams is on his rookie contract.
Oh, it's now.
If you don't get it done now, there's no guarantee it gets done because of all the other people that are not going to get paid, not going to be retained. You better hope you finally have talent in the pipeline because we have yet to see that from the Ryan Poles era in terms of people who you can say, oh, that guy, Ryan Poles drafted him.
Yeah.
And forget about All-Pro.
Yeah.
He got selected to the Pro Bowl, even as an alternate. I'll take alternate right now.
Yeah, we don't. That's a very good question. I mean, it's one we have brought up, before when it came to which bear out of the Ryan Poles draftees do you think could be a Pro Bowler? That's another. I think that's another discussion.
While you've got him on your rookie deal, you've got 3 guys that you got DJ over 100, you got Montez right at 100, you got Jalen's is like 80 or like you got to be able to cash in now because if you end up paying him 300-400, that's it. He's out there by himself now, and that's not going to bring us a Super Bowl.
Never mind the fact that this is also the first year of a new head coach's offense. And oftentimes, as we've seen in this city, that is when you are the most potent.
Yeah, true, because people don't know them yet, right? People haven't had the chance to scout them, and we'll see what that looks like the first time through the division versus the second time through the division. We'll get a chance to see how people make adjustments to this particular offense and how closely it resembles what they did in Detroit. He talks about building a thing from the scratch, but I'm sure listen, he has an ideal version of how he wants to play football. And I'm sure it looks similar to what he did in Detroit. So we'll see and how the NFL gets to adjust to that.